Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. Hello everybody, and on today's podcast I've got Mark Miller, who is the CEO and founder of Manta Ray EV. Mark, lovely to actually have you on the podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So just to kind of give everybody a little bit of background. So Mark and a lovely lady called Sam have been running some audio LinkedIn sessions, kind of weekly or bi-weekly, haven't you? I think you became weekly, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been weekly.
And I was actually invited on to those sessions, and they've been really, really interesting because you've had a variety of different people on, some people that I know, some people that I didn't, which is great, and you've been uploading them to YouTube. So it's really nice to see you properly for the first time. It's different, isn't it?
Audio only, yes, that's right.
Yeah, I was going to say it's different when you're kind of doing an audio session to something like this. Obviously, those of you who are listening to the podcast, you know, it's like me saying that you could see it in black and white or whatever that thing was years ago. But yeah, so I'm sorry you can't see his lovely face. But yeah, listen, thank you ever so much. So yes, so Manta Ray, you're also the CTO of Digicorp, and yeah, I saw that your background is in Agile. You're very tech orientated. Give me a little bit of your background, how you came to be.
I did a electronic engineering degree in Newcastle, in Northumbria University as it's called now. And I decided during that I didn't want to be an individual contributor in electrical stuff. I wanted to be a team player in software stuff. So for the following 10 years, I basically was a software developer or leader as I became. And then after 10 years, I decided that I needed to do more to have the strategic vision of where products actually needed to go. So I decided to do an MBA, and for the last 20 odd years, I've been doing product management, launching products primarily in telecommunications, financial services, energy with Centrica. I did some stuff with data management, lots of different things, right? So, and ultimately I decided to, after my last corporate job, that I wanted to do something that was more around sustainability and actually climate change action. So, which is another story, which I'll tell you when you ask me the question.
I will. I'll ask. I will write that down now. So yeah, that actually, I think that brings into what we were going to talk about later anyway. So tell me a little bit about Manta Ray, and because at the moment it's not. So when this goes live, you will have launched, won't you?
Yes.
But
So
what is
launched at the end of April, and Manta Ray EV is basically an Airbnb-inspired marketplace connecting EV drivers to private residential and business chargers. And you know, there are other EV charging community apps out there: CoCharger, JustUp, Go Pluggable, to name a few. There's actually quite a few in the UK. There's not that many outside of the UK, ironically. But we are launching in UK and Ireland in the end of April, so we will be in Ireland at the same time as the UK. And the way we differentiate ourselves a little bit is that we focus very much on being a trusted platform. And what that means is that every user that comes on our platform actually undergoes what's called KYC, Know Your Customer, which is the same process that you do when you sign up to Monzo or Revolut. And actually, I think most banks have it now, a digital way of showing your government issued ID, then taking a selfie and verifying yourself. For the hosts, we actually do a little bit more. We verify their address and their charger so that we don't have ghost charge points on the system. That app has a few of those. I know from experience. And so I wanted to avoid that. And for hosts, who often say to me, I don't want strangers on my driveway or premises, and we are going to focus as much on business as on residents. We, other than introducing you one by one as a friend, doing this KYC as soon as they book, as soon as they swipe in to this NFC tag, which will be attached to your charger. So all you need to do is come along with your app, swipe it, and that's the second part that we focused on, which is simplifying the charging experience. So we connect to the car, not to the charger. So so long you're plugged in, right, and you do need to plug in, obviously. We basically connect to the car. So when you set up your car on the Manta Ray app, basically we ask you to connect, do your credentials to your connected car. Most EVs are connected. Actually, most modern cars are connected, not just EVs. But so you put your credentials in to connect to your Tesla or your Kia or whatever it is, so that when you get to this little token, you swipe, and the car starts the charge. And then, depending on what you set your car to, it may stop it, or you swipe this again, and it will stop the charge, and that's it. Right. We then have automated payment. The driver pays directly to the host, so there's no intermediary per se. We obviously take a commission. We're not free, unfortunately. Which actually also means that it's not going to Shell or BP, some big corporates that may or may not be in this country. It actually stays local in the economy effectively. So that's another good thing from my perspective. And the reality is those are the things that we focused on. We have other things, so in-app rewards. So we reward people to do the KYC, we reward them to do reviews, we will reward them to refer other hosts and other drivers to the system. And ultimately, those rewards can be translated into discounts. And at some later point, we will also have a kind of nectar point type exchange of those tokens to discounts for Starbucks and so on and so forth. But that's later on, that's not initially. So we've done a lot of things to have quite a high level of functionality in this. And the reason for that is because we want to focus on destination charging as much as we want to do on neighborhood charging. So co-charger, just up, go pluggable, a lot of them are focused on neighborhood charging. Neighborhood charging, for those that don't know necessarily, is where you have an EV driver that's not able to have a home charger and that needs to find an alternative. Either they're in an apartment or a terrace and they don't have a Kerbo channel on their pavement and they want to charge somewhere else. They can go to neighbors, and that's called neighborhood charging. And co-charger, I think, has been going for 4 years, and they've had some reasonable success in that space. But the reality is that we want to do destination charging because we believe EVs are going to have longer and longer ranges. And what will become more important is actually where you stop for 3 or 4 more hours or overnight, right, to do whatever you're doing, restaurant, theatre, stadium, touristic spot. If I go to Oxford, for example, to take my parents-in-law for a day out, as most EV drivers, I will look for somewhere to park that I can also plug in and charge, right? It's the first nature of an EV driver, right? So, and if I'm staying at a hotel, I'm okay with a level 2 charger overnight. I don't need a rapid charger. No. So although there's a lot of focus on getting the infrastructure out there for rapid and ultra rapid chargers, and people love the idea that they can spend 10 minutes or 20 minutes plugging in. I saw I think you posted something not similar on where you stopped for a short period of time, just top up for the last 30 miles. But if you have cars out there like the Peugeot E3008, which is I think 700 kilometers, don't know what that is in miles, sorry. But it's a fair distance, right? And yes, it's not real range. It'll be less than that. It'll be even less than that in the winter. But the reality is that for most people, even when they go on longer journeys, as sodium ion batteries come in, solid state batteries come in, the ranges are just going to go up and up and up, right? And at that point, in the same ways as a diesel and petrol driver, you avoid motorway services. And the reason you avoid them is because they cost a lot of money.
Exactly.
And rapid and ultra rapid chargers, who also sit at the motorway services or at specific hubs around the country, are also expensive. So what people will do is, instead of going to your local supermarket petrol and diesel station, they will charge at home, and they will have enough range for most journeys. At the 700 kilometers, and yes, I know that's WLTP range, which is you have to take with a pinch of salt. They need to fix that, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
Essentially, even if you take 200 kilometers off that, from Cork in the south of Ireland to Derry in the north is 440 kilometers. That means you don't need to stop. Right, from one end of the whole of Ireland, yeah, I think that's what they call it. You don't need to stop, right? You just need to go and to charge when you get there. And if I go to Oxford, which I don't know, it's about 100, it's about 60 miles or something from me, I don't need to stop. I want to charge when I'm there. Do I want to pay for an expensive rapid charger while I'm there because I'm going to be there at least 4, 5, 6 hours? No, I think a level 2 charger shared by Manta Ray EV is a perfectly good one. And we have partnered with somebody like EV Arcado, which is focused on providing domestic chargers, but also chargers for hotels in particular. And we're going to continue to do partnerships like that because we see level 2 charging at businesses, restaurants, pubs, gyms, even leisure, shopping, as where you level 2 chargers are perfectly fine, and you're going to spend a bit of time as being something that ultimately people will want as time goes on, and that's why we wanted to make the charging experience very, very simple, because ultimately you're going to have people that have got experience with rapid and ultra rapid chargers, which some of those experiences are not good, but that's beside the point. But
yeah,
we wanted to tell people that, okay, you're going to a private charger, but that doesn't mean it's going to get complicated. You don't have to sign up to PayPal. You don't have to do this, that, and the other. You just need to swipe your app on this thing, right? And we will start the charge, and we will end the charge, and we will measure the charge in kilowatt per hour. Most of our competitors don't do kilowatt per hour, which they do various different things. I'm not going to talk about them. But we measure in kilowatt per hour, and as an EV driver, you probably know you don't want to pay by duration because you don't know, even if the charge is rated at 7.4 kilowatts, which most home chargers are, or level 2 chargers at restaurants and pubs and so on doesn't mean you get 7.4 kilowatt. You could be getting 3.5 kilowatt.
Yeah.
Right? So you sit there for 2
I've
hours.
had that on a 22 kilowatt charger. Actually, I've had like 3.5 kilowatts and gone, oh my god.
Yeah. But if you're using a service that is based on duration, that means you're paying 7.4 times the duration because they assume the full rating because they don't know any different, right? But where in this particular case, we know exactly what it is that you've consumed because the car actually tells us. Now, and the weird thing is that you'll find this. Yes, I'm CTO with Digital. There was actually a time I was almost going to be a fractional CEO of a EV charging solution.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah, based out of the Netherlands. It was a discussion, but so I started looking at the EV charging solution market, and they had a vanilla EV charging solution, did dynamic tariff, did solar panel integration, all that stuff. So I started looking at that market, and I talked to a number of people, and everybody kept saying to me, "There's so many of them." And to be honest, we do get approached from Chinese EV charging manufacturers.
Yes, I can imagine.
And for some reason now from Eastern Europe, we were getting approached quite often because they need something that differentiates them. Right? So everybody does dynamic tariff, everybody integrates with solar panels, so they look all the same. And the people that I talked to basically said, this time next year, 50% of these people are not going to be there. Right? And I thought, okay, I was talking to a company at the time that basically did the technology to connect to all these different chargers. and they changed their pricing model on me, which not for the good, by the way. They changed their pricing model on me, and I asked myself, because this was at the same time I was looking at the market, why they did that, and it turns out it's because they're having difficulty keeping up with all these chargers that are coming on board and the people that want to have compatibility with them, and it's like a wild west, right? So I decided, you know what, let me go to the OEM side, not the charger side, because the OEM side is at least more stable. Yes, you have new entrants or BYD. I think I saw one yesterday, KGM, something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I'm losing track of all the new OEMs that are coming
Right.
in. I'm sure we'll probably see them fully charged this week.
Yeah, so I think I saw KGM. I don't know if it's Chinese or not, but I saw it pop up on my Facebook. So I don't know too much about it, but there are obviously new ones coming up. But I then went back to because in the middle of last year I went to this company that we partner with now, Smart Car API, which connects directly to the car, because I had to solve the problem of a Tesla charger. Because Tesla, unlike all other home chargers, does not
Handshake.
support OCPP, right?
Okay.
So all the other chargers support this so-called open standard, which is OCPP. And by the way, most not CPOs, but most level two, let me call it that, level two manufacturers chargers all have slightly different ways of doing open standard. So it's which is why I was talking to this company to abstract that. But the reality is, I then went. So I found a solution for Tesla, which is to connect through the car. I then went back to them and said, "Oh, they suddenly had all this compatibility with most of the OEMs in Europe and in North America, which is primarily where I want to go. Right, you know, the next step is to go to Germany and then the US. So this is not a UK only operation. I happen to have 3 passports that gives me access to those markets.
Oh, wow. Flipping
So,
heck. Stop
uh,
it.
uh, so we do want to be more international, and ultimately that helps us scale the business and actually make us, grow more. You know, we want to be the Airbnb for EV charging globally, full stop. And yeah, other companies will say the same thing, but the way that we've built the technology, right, with the partners that we have connected to the car. Yeah, one of my board advisors, she charges her, I think it's a hybrid, plug-in hybrid. She charges her car with a 3-pin plug, right?
God.
So the commando plug. But the reality is that it doesn't matter if you swipe this, if you have a 3-pin plug, a dumb charger, as I call it, or offline charger, or a smart charger, it makes no difference because we connect to the car. And so even if she only delivers a slow trickle charge from her plug, if that's what somebody wants to do, don't ask me why they would want to do that, but let's say they do, we could support that because we don't care what the charger is, right?
That's
And
what the
so
car is.
yeah, because so when we go to the US and we suddenly have the Rams and the F-150s and Lightning, which apparently I saw is being sold in this country, which is it's a massive beast. I mean, I saw it in Dublin. It's absolutely huge. I don't think it's
God.
appropriate for UK roads, but anyway, we don't care again because Smart Car allows us to connect to F-150, Ford F-150, or a Ram, or even a Tesla Cybertruck, which I don't think is appropriate for UK roads either.
That'd be hilarious. Can you imagine the next time? It'd be like watching Logan's Run. If you remember Logan's Run, I don't know whether you're old enough to.
You'd be surprised how old I am.
Well, you probably would be surprised how old I am as well. So.
So, uh, so yeah, so the reality is that because of the technology that we have, we are somewhat reliant on them getting compatibility with, BYD, which they don't have yet because it's fairly new, but they will. And this company's based in Silicon Valley. It's just down the road from Tesla. They actually have native integration with Tesla, and they're pretty well backed. So they're Horowitz and Anderson Horowitz. I think it's that way around, which is a world-renowned venture capitalists, in case you didn't know, but they back this company. And if you're going to get that kind of backing, you know that it's going to go somewhere. And interestingly, talking about vehicle to grid and home, which has come up quite frequently. That I've talked to the CEO of Smart Car for quite a while. They were actually at the utility conference in Amsterdam. When you think yourself, okay, why is a connected car company going to a utilities? Because they see that there's potential innovation with their API with vehicle to grid. And as more vehicle to grid comes along, I think more innovation will happen. And I think they obviously do a lot of stuff with fleet and with other with utility companies. So in the US, a number of the utility companies do stuff with them, not dissimilar to what Octopus does here, kind of intelligent charging and so on.
Okay.
But I think Octopus here uses the smart meter rather, and there some of the, because in the US, there's quite often there's 2 or 3 utility companies just for one state, right? I lived in the States for 12 years, so New Jersey had 3 or 4, right? So each one of them has wants to have a solution for what they see as the electrification of transportation. So, and connecting through the car might be a better solution. So they're trying to figure out how to, because I don't think they have smart meters in the US. I think they're a long way
I
from
can imagine they're a bit further. I think somebody said to me they're about 5 years behind us for a number of things. So we'll see how that kind of changes over the next few years.
Yeah, but there is EV Match, which is a competitor in California, does something very similar to what we're doing. And in fact, they have a good focus on business solutions as well. I think they're partnered with PodPoint to, install and then share their chargers, right? So, one of the things that we're interested in is that, how do business acquire level 2 chargers? I'm not going to look at Rapid, but how do they acquire them? Quite often they go to, a local company like we're partnered with, possibly even CPOs, and say, can you install it? What they end up doing then is basically not paying for it, upfront, but then basically giving up the revenue for that charger for a number of years to that charging provider for providing the hardware and the installation. And we've actually thought about, okay, instead of doing that, you can share it on Manta Ray, get potentially higher footfall, because that's what they're ultimately selling. When somebody as an EV charging solution comes in and provides a business a charging solution, what they're ultimately selling, because they take the vast majority of the revenue for several years to get the upfront money back. What they're selling to the business is that we're going to attract more people to your business who are going to spend longer time there as they plug into this charger. So they effectively sell footfall. But where is it being advertised? It's being advertised on ZapMap, PlugShare, ChargeFinder, things of that nature. And people there generally tend to not look on those applications for shared, private chargers being shared or business chargers being shared. They look for CPO public chargers, right? Whereas if you share it on Manta Ray, most people are on there because they want to find a shared destination charger. So potentially the footfall is actually even higher. So that's a long-winded answer on what Manta Ray EV is. But I obviously, I live and breathe it every day, so it's very very close to me. So
yeah, you're very passionate about it. I can tell, definitely. So if we look at sharing, I'm trying to think about a situation where you're talking about the Airbnb of EV charging. Can you connect? So is it what would you say your percentage of home charging versus business charging that you want to look for then? What will that balance be? And as somebody who my parents, well, who are no longer around, but I'm originally from Halifax, so I used to travel up and down to Yorkshire a lot, and there aren't very many at the current time, many chargers in the West Yorkshire area.
Mm.
So would I be able to book into a Manta Ray charger, and
Yeah.
would it necessarily be on somebody's drive, or would it be in, say, like a business unit that actually after 4 p.m. at night
I
they're
mean,
happy?
so for example, a car dealer, it could be, it could be a pub. I think Michelle Brevet from Women Drive Electric, she went to Wales where her relatives are, and she said,
Yes.
I think she plugged into a pub one time and a park and ride another time.
Yeah.
Right. So, effectively, we just make that simpler, right? Whereas a pub, when they install a charger, typically has to, put a payment system in as well,
Mm,
right?
mm.
With us, the payment system comes by just sharing it.
Of course, so it negates that a bit, negates that need to have to do that because you're taking control of all of that side.
Yeah, and so
Interesting. Okay.
so I don't. To be fair, I don't know the balance between business and private residential. What I do know is that um, right now there's about 55,000 public chargers in the UK,
Mm,
most of which are in the southeast, unfortunately.
they are. I
Uh,
know. This is it.
and by the way, our partner EV Arcado is in Yorkshire and Lincolnshire.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
are they installers of home chargers?
they have their own charger and they install it, and they I think are looking to provide a way of monetizing by providing chargers to hotels, right?
Mm,
They have a level 2 charger rather than rapid chargers. But coming back to that, so there's 55,000 public chargers.
mm,
There's 1.6 million plugins, right? Both hybrid and BEV. And there's roughly speaking, according to ZapMap, around about 700,000 private chargers.
right.
Right. So think of that 55,000, 700,000.
Mm,
So just a quick calculation, and it won't happen overnight. It'll take, hopefully with the adoption of EVs, let's say we get 5% of that 700,000, which is about 35,000. So 5% doesn't sound like a lot. So you would seem it's attainable. But it actually works out to be about 35,000 chargers.
right.
So add that 35,000 to the 55, and if
Mm,
you keep it at the current ratio of how many EVs there are to charging points, that actually means you can put another million plugins on the road. If you keep the ratio as it is right now, that extra million plugins equates to 224,000 million CO2 tons of
mm,
carbon emissions
mm.
that you save. Which, by the way, is equivalent to about 15 new forests, if you equate it and convert it into trees. So I had to do that calculation because every investor, every award that you enter asks what is your carbon emissions
Of
contribution.
course they do.
So that, and the reality is that's just for the UK. If we do this in Germany, Ireland, and other countries in the Europe, which one problem we haven't solved yet is a country like Netherlands is mostly apartment blocks. A lot of Eastern European countries haven't really adopted EVs, and where they have, it's also apartment blocks. Italy
Mm,
is a lot of apartment blocks, so that so the charges that get put into the parking there or the shared parking is also shared across the tenants,
mm, mm.
the owners of the apartments, and there are often housing associations that you have to work with, and we haven't solved that problem yet. There is a potential partner in the Netherlands that could help us solve that problem. But if you go to listen to, as we have on our podcast, as you said, we had quite a number of varied guests. So one of them was in Norway, one of them came out of the Netherlands, and basically he was saying that in the Netherlands they rely very, very heavily on the public charging system because
Right.
a lot of them live in terraced houses and apartments. So they have to have a public charging system that works. But their EV adoption is pretty high, right?
There is, yeah, because I think they're talking about getting to about nearly 100% EV by next year, aren't they?
Oh, are they? Okay.
I think so.
I certainly know Norway is near that. I thought the Netherlands was a bit further
Sorry,
down.
that's what I was meaning. Sorry, it was not. It
Oh,
was Norway I was meaning. Sorry. Yeah.
it's funny because I had an author, Matt Larson, who writes about sustainability and the conversion of the electrification, not only from an EV perspective, but also from an overall economic and grid perspective, right? How does the whole automotive industry transform there? And it looks like in Germany there's a lot of resistance right now, lobbyists, people that believe in their own kind of, fossil fuel burners,
Of course they
um,
do.
as opposed to the EV. Yet you look at the Volkswagen Group, Audi, and so on, the ID 5, 6, and whatever. They have EVs. BMW has some decent EVs coming out with more, but it looks like their heart is not really in it, right?
And it's sad. It's sad. I mean, yeah, I know we used to have a VW, and I know that they didn't upgrade the tech in the kind of the well, I would have gone for an ID3 if they'd have upgraded the tech,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they hadn't. So, the infotainment system was still as shoddy as it was when I had the Golf. So that wasn't a way forward, seriously.
yeah. It's been a while since I had a Volkswagen, so I can't really comment. So, and that was an American car. So, well, it was Volkswagen Touareg, but it was an American version. Uh,
Oh, okay. What was it like, the size of a house?
no, I mean it's a lot. That Touareg is also sold here or was.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen
It
them.
is a, it is a larger SUV, which in the US is not a large SUV. It's a mid SUV.
Oh,
So, but yes,
yeah.
it but ultimately, and you look at all the news about people trying to do hydrogen, or certainly certain OEMs trying to go down the hydrogen path, which they've been trying to go down for years and years and years. You hear the CEO of BMW is basically saying he's not really sure about EVs, and you can see that there's still a lot of skepticism, and I think the EV sales in Germany has slowed down.
Mm,
I think that's because an incentive was actually taken away.
mm. Well,
Um,
we've had that, haven't we? We had an incentive in the UK kind of a few years ago, and they took that away really when it should have been. They should have kept it. More people would have
I mean,
probably
even France,
transitioned.
France had this leasing scheme, really cheap, was actually very, very successful, too successful, because it was costing them a lot of money, because a lot of people switched over to leasing EVs,
And they stopped it, didn't they?
stopped it there as well, because
Mm,
because of money. But there's I think ultimately it will happen. Whether it happens, along the timeline that we will, for those of us that have converted already, we would wish to happen. I don't think it will. It will take a little bit longer. Uh,
yes.
and Sunak moving the goalposts out probably makes it a little bit longer here in the UK as well. So but Biden has just put more money in and more incentives into the US market.
Mm,
Tesla is partnering up with lots of different OEMs to basically create a super network in the US, which they've all Ford has converted to Tesla cables and adapters and plugs and so on, and I think Rivian has also gone down the same path.
mm.
They're all adopting the I forgot what the Tesla plug is called, but NAS something or other. But anyway, so I think there is a momentum there. Well, at least until Trump gets in.
Oh
Um,
God, don't, please don't say the T word. You're gonna give me the heebie-jeebies.
well,
It's all gonna go desperately wrong, isn't it? Again. I
yeah,
don't know why they haven't worked it out after the first time, but that's a whole nother
it is.
conversation.
That's a very political conversation which we don't need to have. So,
No, we don't need to have that one.
and
Not at all.
that's, but yeah, it will ultimately happen. And every hydrogen initiative that it seems to run into problems because of the cost and the cost to actually deliver it. Although interestingly, I was I was at Lisbon Airport last week talking to the head of innovation of ANA, which runs all Portuguese airports in Gatwick and Belfast as well, and a number of others in Brazil and North America. And he was saying that they are experimenting with hydrogen powered buses and so on the air side of things, which is interesting because NASA actually runs BYD buses, electric buses.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I did say that to him, and we didn't have time to debate whether hydrogen worked or not because I'm not a believer in hydrogen. Sorry.
No.
And I did say that NASA runs BYD buses, and why did they not look at that? But apparently, without having a long conversation, it does seem to have some legs. So I'll catch up with him, I think, next week again, so he can tell me more why he thinks hydrogen might work on.
Yeah,
On
and it
his stuff.
depends on the application, doesn't it? Really, of where you're going to use it. I think maybe it's got its place, but where that might be in big applications that that we
I mean, I talked to a member of the European Parliament. He's not a member of the European Parliament anymore, Ismail Ertug, and he actually was the one that brought the bill into the European Parliament to have EV infrastructure EU-wide. So the EU provides money to countries to build EV infrastructure. And obviously, if they don't build it, they get the money withdrawn. So that's how the EU works, right? The stick and the carrot. But he was also a believer that heavy goods, kind of industrial things, would go the hydrogen way. And yet, you only have to look at our roads and you see DHL and various other carriers operating electric trucks. And you watch Paul Kirby's posts
electric van man. Yeah.
Electric van man, and all the trucks. The truck manufacturers, some of which have gone out of business, but then resurrect and starting to have success. So, and I do think that actually in the UK in particular, having a good policy, his van plan is actually something that I think will make a huge difference in this country because a lot of CO2 is coming from those little white vans that float around. It's a big portion of what uses our road system. So I think if that's something that we can, affect, that would be good as well. So
yeah, because I actually got the link to that. I think it was through John Curtis from the EV Cafe, and obviously because he's working on the van plan with Paul and the BVRLA, etc. And I actually got a response back from my MP but actually, do you know what? It was I know somebody else who got a really terrible response from Jacob Rees-Mogg, but I'm not going to. Yeah, you could probably understand what that was. But my response from Matt Rodder, who is my Reading MP, was really, really positive. So I was really pleased with that. So I shared that with John, and John Curtis, and he was going to send that onto the BVR.
Yeah, it's funny because I mentioned I had a chat with Emma Barry, I think is her name. She's in the sustainability SEAI. I don't remember what all the letters stand for, but that's a government organisation in Ireland that actually takes their instruction from ZEVI or ZEV as it is in this country, but it's the same. In terms of providing grants, initiatives, and so on to businesses as well as drivers for sustainability. And I actually mentioned to her this van plan because Ireland has a similar affiliation with vans, and it's actually a nation of driveways. And they've got a lot of grants in place and plans for rapid charging along their national road network. But they don't have a plan yet for destination charging.
Right.
But their whole approach and the whole vibe and enthusiasm in Ireland for EVs is actually very, very positive.
That's good then.
It's obviously a lot smaller than the UK, but it's very, very positive. And
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
government there, or the government agencies there, seem to be a lot more responsive to what actually needs to happen. Unlike here, maybe it's because I'm talking to them, and I've not been able to talk to anybody in ZEV or any other organisation in the UK, strangely enough.
Let's
Um,
just see what happens, Mark, later on in the year.
yeah,
Let's just see. We might, you never know. We might actually have some more ears that are open to kind of conversations. I wanted to talk to you, sort of heading towards the end of this. I wanted to talk to you about the stuff that you're involved in with coral reef restoration. You mentioned climate change at the
yeah,
beginning, and this is really because I don't know whether you know, I'm married to a professor of climate science.
right,
That's really interesting. You kind of you're
yeah,
involved in a project with coral reef restoration, aren't you?
yeah. And the reason we called this company Manta Ray is because I've scuba dived all over the world. And over the last 2 decades or so, have seen, especially the last decade, seen a lot of coral die, especially
Mm.
black horn coral, which tends to go bright white and then, or bright yellow or blue, and then basically start rotting.
Oh no.
And it actually, it affects obviously animals that live on the reef, but
Of
it
course
also
it does.
affects
Yeah, yeah.
larger animals that eats the things that the reefs ultimately produce, which is photoplankton, which is what manta rays and whale sharks do. But in all my time diving, Liz, I've never actually seen a live manta ray.
Oh.
So that's why I called the company Manta Ray. And so I have a big passion about coral reef, and
Mm.
I have I always get a little bit giddy when I work with these world leading marine biologists, uh,
Mm.
which are currently engaged in restoring 100-hectare reef in the Red Sea, which basically means for the next 4 or 5 years they're going to grow about 2 million corals, both on a land nursery in what probably is an Amazon-sized warehouse,
Oh my
um,
God.
400
Oh.
tanks. And also in the reef there will be, we will grow they will grow the corals in the reef.
Mm.
We're actually engaged because our expertise is digital twins. So we're actually creating a 3D model digital twin of the coral reef.
Wow.
So that you can essentially virtually dive through the coral reef. They're using it for monitoring,
Yes.
so they can plan out where they put structures, where they outplant, what corals, what the water flow is, so that when the corals reproduce and create what's called recruits, which is baby corals, it fertilizes and grows the reef. And basically, it's all part of the big NEOM initiative. You've probably heard of the line, that long line city that Saudi Arabia wants to build. Well, not wants to build. They've started building. I've seen.
Okay.
So that whole NEOM range, which actually, ironically, in the mountains you go skiing, and in the Red Sea you can go diving. And and I've talked to a lot of. You can talk to your husband as well, but a lot of emphasis is being on this like kind of 15-minute city where everything is 15 minutes away
Yeah.
from, right?
Yeah.
And what this line city is meant to be is, aid to get Saudi Arabia off fossil fuel and relying on oil, and moving towards a sustainable city. But you can go from one end to the other end in 15 minutes, right? So all your work, your shopping, your leisure is all in that line.
Mm.
And so this is kind of an element of that, so to speak. But it's because it's coral reef, and their goal actually, because we're working with a university there, their goal there is actually to create a blueprint of doing coral restoration,
Mm.
um, so that other large industrial scale coral restorations can basically copy what they did.
Yes. Yeah.
And the way that we're creating this digital twin will have kind of sandboxes for other research organizations, universities to play. But the reason it's in northern Red Sea is because the Red Sea is quite salty
Mm.
and it's also
Mm-hmm.
quite warm. And when you go to, let's say, the reefs in Caribbean, where I saw a lot of the dead corals, it's a lot cooler. But so you could potentially because they're also treating them with biotics to make them temperature resistant.
Right.
So you could potentially, because they're doing something similar, or they have the same goal in the Great Barrier Reef, where there's an organization called AIMS, which is crossbreeding corals to make them temperature resistant. Because the whole point is to try and then take those coral species and put them into corals in Asia and Caribbean and elsewhere that are more on the equator that are not coping with the temperature and that have already died, to kind of repopulate that. So there's a lot of work going in that, and because I'm a scuba diver and I like I don't go scuba diving in cold stuff. I go scuba diving in corals. So
I can imagine.
it's meeting guys that have done. If you go on a YouTube and you do a Thousand Island, you search for Thousand Island, you can see some of the guys that we work with in San Diego, for example, that have gone around 1,000 different corals and put together 3D images of those corals and basically tracking that. There's also, and I always say this to people, there's a documentary on Netflix called Chasing Coral.
Right.
And that's something that which actually is very sad. So if you get emotional, maybe not to watch, but
no, I do.
But because I care a lot about it, and that's why when I finished the corporate job, I wanted to do something that was about climate change, and that's why I called the company what I've called it. So it all kind of and so
all fits together.
My CTO on Manta Ray is the CEO at Digicorp. So and Shamoon, or Sham, is the CEO on Manta Ray, is also on the Red Sea project. So it's all kind of intertwined.
Connected.
Yeah, interconnected, and it's all about sustainability and climate change. So we've got a lot of work on our plate, but it's driven by wanting to do something about sustainability and climate change. So yeah.
Well, I look forward to this. I look forward to seeing the launch and kind of watching how you develop and grow. It'd be really good, and actually see what happens kind of with the coral reefs. And it sounds like a really, really interesting.
Because I've been having conversations with VeChain, which is a blockchain. We were introduced to the billionaire owner, and he just launched the sustainability blockchain.
All right.
And we're currently exploring how we can collaborate with him and the coral reef, and potentially even with Manta Ray as well, to bring some of that to the younger generation. Because when you look at the demographics, which we haven't talked about, but you can actually see it from the survey that I did, I think in January. A lot of people are still over 40, male, unfortunately, Liz. Higher income, probably more conservative, probably not into blockchain or crypto. And I think the more we can involve the younger generation that is into blockchain and crypto in sustainability, the better. We do NFTs of corals, and they can watch them grow on the reef using the digital twin 3D.
Yeah, my son would probably like that actually. He's gonna be studying biology at university from September. So I shall. You'll have to let me know if that happens, and I shall let him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was in Cambridge a couple of weeks ago judging startups on a hackathon.
Oh God.
So I felt very old, Liz, for a start. But I listened to pitches. I saw the demos that they coded together. Some of them is very, very interesting. There's one that wanted to do transparency and traceability of renewable energy, right? So when you get your electricity coming to your house, OVO and other people say, it's. I think of OVO because I think they try to sell renewable energy. I'm sure many others do, not to advertise OVO, but how do you know, right? And with the blockchain, which is an absolute record, and it's transparent and it's traceable, potentially you can actually trace it back to the wind turbine that actually did it.
Oh my God, I know nothing about blockchain, so I'm a bit oblivious to the stuff like
Yeah,
this. But
yeah, yeah.
listen, listen, thank you for your time. You've been really interesting to talk to. You've
Thanks.
obviously got lots of passion across many different areas, and I wish you all the best with everything to do with Manta Ray and with the coral reef restoration project. Sounds amazing. So I look forward to seeing that all kind of develop and move forwards.
All right. Thank you very much, Liz. Speak soon.
Thank you. And listen to everybody else. Thank you for listening and watching, and I shall see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Electric Evolution. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay connected with us. And if you're inspired by our journey towards a sustainable future and want to support our mission on a monthly basis, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Your support really helps us to bring the latest insights and discussions in the world of clean energy, electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging and sustainability to you. If a regular subscription isn't what you're looking for, you can always consider buying us a coffee. Just head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/Electric Evolution Podcast. Every cup helps us to keep the electric evolution moving forwards. And if you're curious about our work in the EV infrastructure sector at Full Circle Continuous Improvement, why not visit us at www.fullcircleci.co.uk to find out more. And if you want to send me a message, you can always email me on liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. And finally, please don't forget to share this podcast if it sparked your interest. And let's keep spreading the word about all of these topics that we're covering. So, until next time, see you soon. Bye.